welcome to another exciting show. Hey! It's surprising how quickly the show's come round, isn't it?
Yes.
And tonight we've got the leading expert on Bigfoot, and I do hope your foot does get better. No, Bigfoot. It's Deborah Hatswell. Hey, hello, Deb.
I've got some new cream for it, Chris, so I'm hoping that'll take care of it.
Excellent.
Oh, that's good. And we got Buzzy Bee of Fockham, the spider's web, and we're a bit posh tonight because we got subtitles, haven't we?
We have got subtitles.
So, yes, we got Deborah Hatswell, BBR Investigations, and yours Spider's Web. And you've got a very important. I know the Americans changed the calls their Sixth Fleet because of this, didn't they? Your Sunday show is changing its time.
It is.
Isn't it?
It is now, instead of 4 p.m, it is now 8 p.m, as from the 12th, I think I said. No, I can't remember now.
Was it next Sunday, isn't it?
Notification, you'll get notified.
Click that bell.
Click that bell.
Oh, we're going to have an advert for it as well, so that's pretty good. And also, you notice that poor old Deb, actually, we've got two Debs here, haven't we? So you notice poor old Debbie has got a problem with her thumb.
Yeah, call Middle Deb B.
Call me B, and then that'll distinguish us.
Okay. Now you've got a bit of problem with your thumb. So shall we have some nice healing music? And you haven't been picking it. No, you haven't been picking your nose. It was that one you didn't pick your nose with. So that one was it.
I've just been doing too much violining at the Palace. That's what it is.
Ah, that's it. I thought you'd been raking your roll out. That's the one you do it with. So let's have some nice tinkly music, shall we? So get better soon. Hey, come on. Healing thoughts for Deb's thumb. Hey,
and you need to watch your thumb, Deb.
Oh, I can feel it.
Can you?
One thumb, fix thyself.
Yeah. If suddenly starts swirling around, let us know.
Yeah. Also, now, those of you that are observant have noticed that I'm not that keen. I still use Ask About Facebook, as I call it, to advertise the show and things like that. I don't use WhatsApp now. And I do messaging on Telegram. And people have said, I can't answer you because there's no comments part. And I went, huh?
On Telegram?
Yeah, well, there is apparently, but you have to start another group. Okay.
Okay.
So I started it off thinking, oh, I got a comments bit. And I thought it's funny why nobody's commenting because I
can do it.
Can you?
I couldn't do it, Chris. And I am a social media wizard. I couldn't do Telegraph. Exactly the same as you. It's like Reddit, but not even Reddit. It's like this subheading after subheading after sub.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Because I started, I thought, oh, I have to add comments in. So I added comment, and it started another group.
Yeah.
I thought, hang on, I can't have two groups going. I only want one group. So I thought, okay. Yeah. So I think the best thing is to use the old. Hello, oh blimey! Hang on, we've got funny things happening. Have we got ding ding? I better turn my phone off.
Yeah, I've just realised I haven't done that. Okay, I have now.
Deb, get him onto Linktree. You get him onto Linktree.
Right.
Oh, a message from you, Deb. Do you think I ought to go away and read it?
Yeah, earlier would have been good, Chris.
It would have been a good idea. It wasn't that with this bloody thing. Oh, sorry, I can't turn it off. But it didn't ding. That's the thing, because sometimes it dings and sometimes it didn't. But anyway, I think we got advert here and everything. So as I say, with Telegram, thank you for everybody that subscribed to Telegram. I'm sorry I can't comment in there on there, but I haven't quite wanted. It's a pain in the ass. I've got to start another group if you want comments. And I didn't realise that at the beginning. So I said, well, that's right. I said, oh dear, what a shame, but not exactly in those words.
Yeah.
It's two words with the last word with it. Someone guess the first word.
Answers on the postcard.
That's right, yes. Right, so shall we go to chat first using chat, and then
let's have
first on with the show? Here we go.
Let's have a gander. Right, we have.
I
got-
can't see the chat, folks. So I'm not being ignorant, but I can't see the chat. My laptop's over there, and I need everything I've got to be able to bring the site. So I just
That's
can't see
true.
the chat.
Right, so we've got Baby with a Laser, hello. Joe Weeks, we've got Hatchy, we've got Mike Wright, we've got me, we've got Bob from Rugby, we've got, hang on, my cursor's disappeared, we've got Rick Allen in, we've got Kev Scarrett in, we've got Stig in from New Zealand, who hasn't slept all night, and Exploration in. So that's our lot for tonight so far. So hello and
that's
welcome.
pretty good. And for exploration, all being well, John and his crappy computer, and his excellent computer will be on next week.
Yeah.
we hopefully we've cracked it now with his connections.
Angela's just popped in. Hello, Angela.
Hello, Angela.
We're up to date now so far.
Right now,
what's that duck there? That's not in my house, people. That's not my definition.
No, that's the strange duck. Irritating demon.
Actually, it's 3 ducks on her wall, but don't say anything.
Fair enough.
I can't see. Deb knows how blind I am. I can't see further there, so I'm thinking.
It's not in your way, Deb.
What's that on me wall?
I know it's a new house, love, but you should be used to it by now.
I'm thinking, what have we done now? He went off and fitted my mirrors, Deb. He didn't ask me where I wanted them or how tall he had to be, so all the mirrors are at Mark's height. I can't see
nice. I'll just put you a little stool there so you can have a look.
I've been sorting out my food storage today, and between you and I found some tins going back to 2014. I should think it'd be all right. Tin of peas from 2014, you know.
Well, yeah, possibly.
So, you know, if I'm sort of next week, you know, I've eaten them.
Like I said, earlier, in the 90s, I found some tins in my grandma's attic that were from 1955. Didn't open them.
Yum.
They'd be worth money then now. They'd be worth
all labels come off. You could hardly tell what they were. One were a tin of peas, I know that. Other than that, it were anybody's guess.
I've got tins of
potatoes.
While
we're waffling, Deb, my dad was so poor when he was a kid. He said they used to buy tins with no labels on, and we warm them up in a pan back then. You know, put the pan in and click the lid. He said one day he come home from school and he tips it out and it was hot tin peaches.
Oh no, peaches are bad enough cold. No.
My sister always hated tin strawberries.
Oh, yeah, I do.
And we had, and the old tin strawberries. I mean, she's much older than me, and we used to go over. My aunt and uncle lived in Farnborough in Kent. I've got fond memories of that, near Biggin Hill. And years ago, when I was a baby in arms, when my dad was at work, my mum, my sister, and me being a baby, used to go by an old coach down there. And then my dad used to drive down and pick us up and take us home. I don't remember. I was too young, you see. And this old coach, apparently, it was all fumes coming in. It was horrible. And my sister got the travel sick. So she got off the coach, go and see my aunt and uncle. And she's like, oh, is she all right? And she said, oh, I know what we've got. Some lovely tin strawberries. They had it in their mind that my sister liked tin strawberries. So she'd be throwing up all the way to their house to put some tin strawberries in front of her.
Nice.
Back in the olden days, though, people used to actually go on holiday. That was a working class holiday, was to go to Kent, to the field and pick.
Yeah.
So your kids would pick and you'd pick and Nana would pick and Auntie would pick. And then it was just like this big, long 2-week party. And these little peasants there going, oh, we're on holiday. We're all in the fields. This is wonderful. We're not in Mill anymore. You know, but yeah, it was Kent is the garden of, is it the Garden of England?
It is.
But the true Garden of England is actually Lincolnshire, because more fruit comes from Lincolnshire than Kent now.
Both areas with lots of strange creatures in them, I must say.
That leads us in nicely to leads us in nicely to the reports you've got there, Deb.
And also, what I was reading, which you kindly sent through on email, about places around near where I live, including a dwarf Bigfoot, which made me laugh a little bit. That midget Bigfoot.
As I said to Deb, and I'll explain just for context for people, the idea was, Deb said, let's have a look at the Lee Valley, Debbie, and see what you've got. What I've got with me tonight is a very small sample of the reports that are out there in the Lee Valley. So I haven't included any if there's been a UFO reports, I put one in. There's been animal attacks, I put one in. There's lots of them around the area. So I've got some ready for you to give you an understanding of what's kind of going on down there. And I know the chap said it looked like a little bear, but when you take into account, Chris, that the Hackney Marshes since 1973 up to 2015 has had 3 bear reports.
Yeah.
And 2 bear heads were found in the River Lee.
Really? Because I know that the valley, I've actually looked it up. In 1963, apparently, it used to be places where they dug sand and dumped stuff, and it was like I wouldn't say an industrial area, but it was a bit of a dumping ground, a bit of a dump in many ways. And they've actually done a brilliant job, I have to admit. It really is. It's a forest now, and you've got lakes there, and the sand pits have all been, obviously water's filled them and that. And it really is beautiful. I mean, I cycle for about 15-20 minutes without seeing a soul through this wooded area. So anything could be in there. It's a huge wood, and then it links in certain areas to Epping Forest slightly. There's sort of a few houses between, but we're not obviously going to concentrate directly in this sort of area, obviously. But there are some fascinating reports because with the Lee Valley, you can be on your. I mean, I think it was last year I was cycling along and I hadn't seen anybody for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. This is in midsummer. I was thinking, a bit weird. And eventually I saw some people coming towards me. But, it is a place you could easily get lost in. I've got lost in it several times. All right, there's paths with signposts that don't really give you any indication where you're going. But you come out in areas that you didn't realise you come miles out your way. But it is a big area, and it stretches a long way. It's fantastic. And I love it down there.
The name interested me because LEA is another word for ley. Yeah. So that tells me that there's ley energy in that area, and that's a lot of where my instincts lie. So I think a lot of the reports that I've got tonight may be to do with that Earth's energy, in the sense that. Maybe these beings are using that energy to show themselves, kind of thing. And if you're into history, you don't have to be into Bigfoot. You might still enjoy this anyway. There is a paranormal researcher called Christopher L. Huff. And if I'm looking down, I'm not being ignorant, I'm just having a read. And he was born in the area. He was born close to Epping, close to, is it Amesbury Banks? I know it's near Lawton Camp. So he was born at the Wake Arms roundabout. So he said he actually became an investigator because of something that happened to him when he was a child. And I thought that you might gel with him a little bit, Chris, because you're of a similar generation. I think Chris is older than you, but this happened in 1974. And he said, I had an experience with a friend when we were fishing at the Blackway Pond. Locals know it as the Lost Pond or even the Suicide Pond, as it's an eerie place to be in the daytime, let alone at night. So with only a pocket knife for protection. And it's a strange place at the best of times. I've been to that area so many times as a boy with my friends, and we'd fish late or just play as boys do, and we'd come home when we were hungry. The Lost Ponds is in the area of Lawton Camp. And the pond is hidden away in the middle of the forest. It's a hard location to get into, and it's not visible to any passers-by. Hence the name. But it has a bad reputation. It says, even the pond has an eerie feel. It's a strange circular pond, and there's gravel at one side, and it's known as the Suicide Pond. It always feels dark and solemn when you're there. And it's said that sane individuals would inexplicably overcome with grief or sadness for no reason, and some would throw themselves into the water. Not many people fished it, he said, other than us kids. So it was always a place that we'd head to. So I think this is just young boys who are doing something that they've done so many times before.
Yeah.
On one of these fishing trips, on one of these fishing trips, I must be hungry. We'd headed to the pond and fished for a while, and it had gotten late in the evening. It would have been back in the 1970s, I think 1974. We then camped on the bank of the pond, and there's kind of a gravel area, and the forest is a little bit to the back of us. So they got 2 fishing umbrellas as wind breaks, and they got the rods in the water, and they're just waiting to catch something. And he says, we're sitting there in the quiet with just the gentle bob could be heard, and the woods were quiet. When from behind us, there was a noise, and it was coming out of the forest. It was kind of like a shuffle in the leaves, and then a loud thud, a really heavy thud, and then a thump. And as we heard a really loud, extremely heavy thud again, then after a second, there's another thump. And then, one after another, they seemed to be getting closer to us each time. The next thud was the scariest of all. It wasn't leaves we heard, it was the gravel behind us. As strange as this may sound, it sounded to me as though there was a very heavy man and he'd hopped out of the forest and was trying to sneak up on us. Or something very heavy on 2 legs unseen was coming our way. We're looking at each other dumbfounded with a mix of fear and annoyance at the first that this might be one of the Epping Forest pervs. That's the only word I can say at the moment. That so many, that's what they're worried about. It's going to be some awful old man in the rave. I can get him. Yeah, so they grabbed the torches. He said, all we've got to defend ourselves are the rod rests and the tiny little knives that you have for cutting your line, He said, so we get ourselves ready and think, right, we're just going to jump out, the pair of us, and make as much noise as we can, and that's going to be it. So 1, 2, and they jump out, and there's nothing there. Just absolutely nothing there. And what wasn't added in, I had a private conversation with Chris many, many, many years later, as he's been a paranormal investigator, and there was a period of missing time for them.
Right.
So it's not something he wants to make public of or to say how long it happened or anything like that. But so there's far more to this than I can actually share with you. So he said he still had no idea what that noise was, but he remembers the thud and the thump. So put yourself in that boy's position. You're out with your mates. You did, probably a bottle of water and a bag of some jam butties, and you've got your, you're off to the park all day, kind of like I was doing, and then thud, and you've no torch, you've nothing. There's no street lighting back then, was there? 1974, no mobile phone to flick on.
No.
And you've got to steel yourself. 2 boys thinking, I think I'm a grandson, getting himself ready to jump out at this, what he thinks he's going to be a man. And it must be more frightening to just have nothing there at all. Just nothing.
Definitely.
So he did what I did. He started looking, and he went everywhere he could to just find people. And he really gave me a really good history lesson, really, on that area. And there was a number of people who've gone through similar things to him. And it's one of the areas where it said that Boudica haunts anything. And it's got this really strange feel to it. Now, I think any ancient battlement, empartment or anything like that has a really strange, especially if you're sensitive to energy. Like I can feel it here now, like it has a strange thing to it. And I wonder if that was something frightening those boys on purpose to get that fear reaction from them, because it didn't reveal itself as anything. It was probably holding back, and if that didn't scare them enough, it probably would have, appeared as something awful. But to this day, he's in his 60s and he is still doing paranormal investigating for absolutely free. Yeah, because of that event that happened to him in Epping. Really? That's how much of an effect it had on him, Chris.
That's interesting. I'll tell you something that might add into the mix is that when the London Plague was going, the bodies were actually brought out on boats because it's the River Lee, and then it turns into the Stort. It's just a river that they made into a kind of canal, but it is an actual river and they actually brought a lot of the bodies out of London and buried them in pits as far as north as Ware. And these chaps were commended for what they did. And all the way along the side of the Lee is apparently plague pits. So you never know. And I mean, I worked at a place once many years ago. Who I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hairnet building. I think it's near Cannon Street, and it's a building that looks like a hairnet over it. It's got sort of like nets. Anyway, I talked to some old boys that have worked on that building must have been the 70s, and they were close to retirement. And apparently, when they were digging down, they come across some skeletons, and they quickly stopped works, and they got the police in, and they said, no, these skeletons are old. You've got to get archaeologists in. Then the blokes of the ministries came, cordoned off the whole site, and they had all the full body suits and everything, because they said the plague could still be alive under there, because some of the pits weren't limed, because they used to put lime down to kill the plague.
Yeah.
And they had the full, the old, and apparently it was okay. They must have limed it. And I remember the old boys saying, we had a weird quantity surveyor that wanted to cut the skulls to use as ashtrays. There are some sick people in the building industry. But anyway, they were saying that that was quite interesting from the plague. So these hauntings could be from plague. Because remember, we don't know where these plague pits were.
I know one.
Really?
Where I had my experience was a plague field.
Right.
But when he said it, then I was like, oh. Yeah, Bewley, where I had my experience as a girl, and all those other people had experiences, is a plague field.
Right. That's interesting.
I mean, those plague pits, we don't know. As I say, they didn't document things very well. When was it? The 17th century plague, wasn't it? 16 something like that. So we know they did have plague pits at Ware. They went, and that's quite a way north. That's in Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
And there could have been plague pits all the way along going back into London.
Yeah.
Well, if they were in Manchester, if they were in Manchester, where I am, they've got to have been, haven't they? If the area I had my experience in Manchester was a plague pit, I would imagine, Chris, they've been shipped out all across the country.
Sorry, I'm trying to upload something. Carry on.
Oh, sorry, I thought
that's my area where I saw something a good few 100 miles away from where you are. So they must have been transporting the bodies out.
Yeah.
Manchester back then was a bit of a swampy mess. Nobody wanted to buy anything here or anything like that. So I would imagine there was people was selling the land, back then, just to make enough. Just before the Industrial Revolution. So I know where I was. John Dee was sent to Manchester as a punishment. That's how bad it was.
Oh God!
Elizabeth I Manchester. John Dee, the alchemist. Elizabeth I. He was her alchemist. He used to scry with a guy called Edward Kelly. And he would summon demons using obsidian. And I have some strange synchronicities with Mr. John. And he's supposed to have done some scrying at the place where I had my experience when I was a girl, which is also a plague field, which is also on a ley line. So it's like...
Yeah.
So that's on a ley line?
Yeah.
And the Lee is on a ley line?
Mm-hmm. Lee actually means, the name Lee means, the River Lee means the river of energy. Lee or ley is energy. So
really?
Look at Oxfordshire, the Ley Valley, Ley. We've got the same reports. A guy walking down to his mates to play guitar, they're in a band together, gets shadowed down this narrow valley with embankments on the side. As he walks, it walks. As he stops, it stops. He says, I suddenly realised that we're going in the same direction and we're going to converge. Yeah. So he doesn't know what to do. So he stops really quickly to catch it out, and he did catch it out. And he kind of rallied himself at that point. And I think because he'd rallied himself and it didn't get the effect that it wanted, it growled from the darkness at him. So you've got two valleys, same as the Thames, same as the Medway. Wherever that river flows, there is energy, there's lay energy. And I think these cryptid beings, entities, whatever name you want to give them, are tapping in to that energy.
That's fascinating because, you know, this thing with water. I mean, I don't know if you probably didn't see that experiment that we did a week or two back, where I had 3 containers, and this was thanks to Michelle of where's she? Bolton, I believe she is, up north there. She sorry,
Yeah.
To be one of my neighbours. Michelle, I'm in Bolton.
Michelle Smithhurst.
I don't know. I'm just saying she would be one of.
She might be a neighbour. That's what she told me about this, and she did it the same. We're going to see the results of her experiments. I had 3 containers of water, one that and it had rice in each container with water, and one that you loved, the one that you just ignored, and one that you actually hated.
Yes.
And in the end, the one that I loved, there was some slight little pricks of sort of little, you could hardly see it, little bits of green in it. The one that I ignored, there was green all over it. And then the one that I hated went brown. Actually, it actually went brown.
Yeah.
And the stink from it, I mean, yeah, and the smell. I mean, the one that I loved, it had a kind of alcoholic, a ricey alcoholic smell to it. It wasn't too bad. But the one that I hated, the stench was, well, I had to put a lid on this container because I was in this office. Oh dear, it was really on the nose.
Yeah.
So
it's only like the pyramid, putting a razor blade under a pyramid. Anywhere you intensify energy, you can heal stuff. But if you intensify it in a negative way, then it enhances in a negative way, if you get what I mean. So
we did that as an experiment with razor blades. It's from the book Supernature, isn't it?
I don't know. I just know that it works. If you put them,
yes, it does work. Yes. Yeah, you got to have it that's precise dimensions, and you put a razor blade underneath, and it'll sharpen the razor blade. It's quite an amazing thing. But these, I've learned something. I mean, I've lived here most of my life, and I never knew that it was it was actually a ley line that goes up there.
In that
and
valley.
I know that if you go further north to Royston, I think it's where 2 ley lines cross. There's a sorry, no, correction. There's a ley line that goes across there, and there's a Roman crossroads, and they always.
I was just going to ask you, are there any Roman roads in the area?
Yes.
Roman roads follow the lays. Yeah, Roman roads follow the lays. So how did the Romans know? Most lays are on Roman roads, so they must have been important to them somehow. Yeah. That energy. Mm-hmm.
I'm off of the A10. I'm not sure if that was Watling Street or Ermine Street, one of the two. I've lived here all my life. I can't remember which one, but I know it's somebody would know. But that goes all the way up to Cambridge, and there's parts where you can see it's dead straight. They've actually built over it, obviously, and there's been diversions and things like that. But yes, I live off of a Roman road, and at Royston, that's a very haunted place. That's a Roman crossroads, and they buried their dead at crossroads, apparently.
Yeah, I was just going to say that must have meant something to them, or they wouldn't have taken the time to take them there and bury them there, would they? So that's right. You're putting energy into something there, whether it's mourning or, you know, I think it might be like Stonehenge, Chris. I think when a place is important and it's filled with this joyous energy, I think we all take part in that. And you reckon like Stonehenge was this huge drum, so you would have been able to feel it from miles around. So I suppose back then it was magnificent, you know, to see the lights and to walk and all these crowds. You've probably never seen that many people in your life before. There must have been a reason why we did that, why we had that pomp and ceremony. And, and the reason that the Germans, I blame them for everything, and I'm part German. When the Romans came in, they felt the same about our special places, our places where we went to worship. But we understood as human beings earth energy and the ley lines. It must have been important to us. We wouldn't have put so many ancient sites upon them. Yeah.
We might be related, Deb, because I'm part German as well, so it goes back a bit long, though.
Yeah, mine's I know. So people say to me, you can tell, look at you look like Swedish, kind of Northern European I am more than English. But way back. way back in the day. Yeah.
No, it's really interesting because I know that places like Dunstable, that's actually on a ley line, and it goes across to Newmarket, which is a ley line, and that's a ley line that goes through Royston. And I think Sandy, which is further north, which is in Bedfordshire. I apologise in advance for anybody that lives at Sandy, but it's a place I literally can't stand. It's the most. It puts me into a strange mood. Everything's
stay like that.
So that's important.
Yeah, and the strange thing about Bedfordshire villages is that none of them that I know of, there may be some that have a centre to them. Because normally you get a church, then you get like a high street. Well, you go to Bedfordshire.
Yeah, normally you'd have a green up here. And,
you go through, you get some houses, that's the village, and then you're out. And you think, and it doesn't really have. And I'm sure there's someone from Bedfordshire going to tell me and say, I live in a village that's got a centre to it. But the ones I've seen, they've not got a centre to them. It's a very weird place.
It is because that was the hub of the community, wasn't it? Back
then. Spell it for me. How do you spell it?
Sorry?
Spell the village name for me. I've pulled my map up. How do you spell it?
Sandy. Sandy.
Right.
I've heard of that.
Just put shithole. Sorry. Depressing dump in Bedfordshire. Oh yes, there it is. Yeah. I mean, it is a very I don't know what it is about Bedfordshire. It's very famous for Brussels sprouts, and if you go there this time of the year and it's been raining, the smell is rather. The whole area smells of farts.
Chris, I've got a sighting there on the river, on the Ouse, on the Great Ouse at Sandy, 2018.
Doesn't surprise me.
Oh, go on, man.
Okay, all right.
Well, for context, they're actually kayaking up the Great Ouse, and there's a place that you can stay overnight. I think it's free, actually. It's like wild camping, but there are a few amenities. So. Like it's not really, there aren't any toilets or anything like that, but you can pull your kayak up, pitch your tent, there's firewood there and that kind of thing. So basically what she said is there are toilets, but they're kind of like not the best. So most people set themselves off into the woods somewhere. And she said, in August of 2018, myself, my husband and our friend had kayaks all day and we started at Bromham Mill. It's Bromham. I think spelled that way, the other side of Bedford town. We made camp, and just as it was getting dark and it began to rain, we were at the Matchstick Wood wild camping place. There was no one else using the campsite, so we had our choice of all the clearings. We'd had our dinner, and a friend and his 2 kids visited later in the evening. We did the typical marshmallows and hot chocolate thing, and then they went home. They were all a bit spooked by the darkness, but she said they're not really used to country life, so she just put it down to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
She said, whilst guiding them in and out of our woodland, my husband noticed a surprising amount of eye shine from the trees around in the light in his torch. He said he saw at least one small cat and said he just put the rest down to it as likely being deer because it was too tall for a cat. We thought it was pretty cool that we were showing them all this nature and wildlife. Myself and my husband have spent quite a bit of time out and about, including wild camping on Dartmoor. I grew up in the countryside. I have horses. I go out to see my horses in the blackest of nights, and I don't even use a torch. She said, if I need to pop outside at night, it is nothing for me. So she's clearly not scared of being out there. And she said, that's where this trip became really peculiar for me. She said, all right, earlier on in the night, she'd had like a sinking feeling, a kind of a feeling of dread. And she said it was when the fire started to die down for the last minute, she kind of got this, like, you know, we're about to go into darkness kind of feeling, which I think is primal, isn't it? Well, she's used to campfires and, you know, watching them to the end and going to bed. As I picked my way, she said she needed to go for a pee before she beds down. So she sets off into the woods to do that. And as I picked my way along the path between the camps, I had to choose a toilet. I got that familiar prickling feeling sensation, like I was being watched by someone and that I was in danger. And women know that feeling. She said, I'd heard nothing clued me into it. I should add that in the past, I've relied on my intuition to get me out of more than one potential assault scenario with a male. You know, you listen to your reason when you're a female. She said, I think most women do, unfortunately, because of what they've suffered growing up. She said, I suddenly realised at that moment just how isolated I was and how far from protection and from my husband and my friend I was. And it really spooked me. She said, I'm a strong woman. I'm well trained in self-defence. And the thought crossed my mind that if anything sinister had been watching me that night, they could just get me. She said, and I felt like I'd made a very grave mistake. I tried my hardest to calm my nerves, and I'm telling myself it's just a thought, it's just your imagination, you know, you're just on high alert, calm yourself. She said, and as I peed as quick as I could, pulled my pants back up. She said, and all that time I'm waiting for a man to come walking out of the darkness at me.
Yeah.
So she's trying to get herself covered up as quickly as she can, if you can understand. She's in panic there. And she stays silent at that point, as silent as she can. A, I'm imagining she's probably listening. And B, she doesn't want to make a sound so we can clue in on where she is. As soon as I finished, she said, I started walking back. Well, I was trashing. I was just throwing myself through the undergrowth, just trying to get back to the tiny bit of light that I could see at the fire. She said, and as I'm going through that undergrowth, I am pulling my pants up at the same time. She said, because it was late, the fire had almost gone down at that point. She said, finally, I recognised a path and I found my way back to safety. And the guys thought it was really funny because he'd seen me torch zigzagging, and they didn't realise that she was frightened or anything like that, you see. She said, and I admit, I just laughed it off. I didn't really know how to explain what had creeped me out.
Yeah.
But the thing she wanted me to know more than anything was she knows deer, she knows spot, she knows horses, she knows cows. She's used to being out. And she said something was watching me, and it was watching me that entire day, and it was waiting for me to leave that camp on my own. Yeah. And that feeling of, you know, that's her picking up on that, isn't it? Yeah.
Because women have got greater intuition than women have got far greater intuition than men.
I think that comes from being maternal, though, doesn't it? Because where the baby's crying and all that kind of thing. So I think that's where that kind of comes from.
I'm going to be really.
And also, you can see colour more than.
Not just that, Chris. The first time that I was approached in the very wrong way by a male, I was probably 5 or 6, and it was a postman, and he flashed me. So you learn very early on when you're a female, don't walk with the traffic coming behind you. You learn it really early. Your mum puts you in a corner and says to you, this is what you need to do if you find yourself out there on your own. And so I think women are used to that feeling of, something's not right about this situation. There's something dodgy about this guy. Or why is he quickened his step? I think we're so used to being on high alert when we're out that, we are picking up on other things. And if we're not a male, a male might be seen as too much. What they're looking for is a weaker victim.
Yeah.
You know, the two men, the men, aren't they? Yeah. So if he's after this fear, it's flight or fight fear, then you go for the female. Yeah. Because she's going to get out and she's going to be frightened. Imagine if she wasn't so well put together. That was her first time out there or something like that. She'd have been absolutely terrified. She probably never would have gone out again.
No, definitely not.
Well, that's right. But also, in woods, I mean, I was cycling back, when was it? I think it was last year. And it was, I wouldn't say twilight, but it was getting towards the sun going down. Luckily, I knew the path I was on. I was actually in the Lee Valley. And it was a beautiful, I wouldn't say it's late summer. It was, I can't remember, but the sun was going down. And I was on my racing bike at that time. So I was at the head down. I was really shooting along. And luckily, this path I was on was quite well tarmacked, so I could get a bit of speed up. And I knew how long it would take me. And I knew roughly where I was going because, say, in the Lee Valley, you got to sort of, and as the sun was going down, the reflection on the tree bark, your mind can see faces.
Yeah.
And you get a feeling that you are being watched. And you are being watched by animals. Because there's a saying in Africa, apparently, I've never been there, but I was told this.
Yeah, if you
that
feel
in
you're
Africa,
being
they
watched,
say,
you're being watched.
one pair of eyes you can see, there's 20 you can't see.
Yeah.
So if you see a pair of eyes, say, from a hyena or a leopard or something, there's 20 you can't see that are looking at you. And when you're going through the woods in this country, anywhere, there's always eyes of squirrels, mice or whatever looking at you, but you can't see them. And your imagination can run wild. And remember the other week I was saying about those two columns I saw on a full moonlit night. I was driving along and I could see these great big sort of like knights with heads. And it was a slight breeze and there was trees rustling a little bit. It was a full moonlit night. So these round heads were changing. And I was thinking, bloody hell. And there's this twisting road, my car's getting closer towards it. And all it was two columns to an entrance to a house or something. And it was in the middle of nowhere. But I was, excuse my language, shitting a brick as I was going towards it. Then I realised I thought, sod. But you think your imagination takes over. So I wasn't seeing two columns with balls on the top. I was seeing two sort of huge alien creatures sort of going like this. But
it's funny because I've got a bit of a story that's similar to that. Back in the early 90s, something like that, me and my friend had gone up to Haworth, where the Bronte sisters are from, and we actually walked. It got dark and we walked through the graveyard, and there was a pair of pointed ears over the wall. And because the moon was out, we could kind of see, and we were saying, what's that?
Yeah.
And we were trying to work it out, and it was making some really odd noises. So then we decided, actually, after we'd stood there petrified for quite a while, trying to see what it was, because it was moving behind this wall, we decided it was a donkey. But then as the years went by and I thought about the noises it was making and the look of the ears, I don't think that was a donkey. So when I wrote I think it was my second book, I had an aerial view of the cemetery. I brought an aerial view up. There was absolutely, because I'm thinking it was a field over the wall, and it wasn't. It was woods, thick, dense woods behind this wall that we'd seen this thing. I have no idea what that was, but I would swear to God wasn't a donkey.
Oh.
Because the noises as well weren't donkey noises. Thinking back then, we would have thought there were, but there weren't. Now I'm thinking back, there weren't donkey noises.
Oh.
Where's your book available from, Deb? What's it called? Is it available on Amazon?
Amazon. It's, the first one's Life is Strange, and the second one is Life is Stranger. And the third one will be Life is Stranger Still.
That's a good title, I like.
I think that'll be unless there's a load more things happen before, I've packed my bags.
That's
sorry, I didn't mean to
time to do it. But the bit I picked up from that was they're both on opposite sides of the,
Yeah.
But they're having very similar experiences. And I mean, for all you think, well, it's not exactly the same area. If we're saying that these things are not flesh and blood, I don't think area has anything to do with it. No. I think they can appear and disappear at whatever point they want.
Yeah.
But there are some attacks down there in those areas where almost bear-like or cat-like, where you've got scratches on the flanks of horses that are actually kept within Epping Forest. And plaiting of tails, manes.
Yes.
Almost in it like what I would call the Fae would do, where they, plaiting a mane and putting like little flowers in and things like that on the horses. That's lovely, but some of our horses, the flanks have been actually, been gouged on the side of them. And people are hearing howling down there and things like that at night. So it's not just people say, oh, it's Epping Forest, you get, these murders in there, you get this, you get that. I get that, I understand that. But what you're getting is locals from the area who are saying, no, we're used to all of that. This we cannot pinpoint. There's been an increase in missing pets as well, which always clues me into an area. There's possibly a big cat there. If the pets are going missing,
Yeah.
And if you go and look how many people go missing in the Epping Forest area and just go missing, I think you'd be surprised. Yeah. And if you put in for bodies found in that area, you'll find some in the woodlands. So you've got all of that playing in. And then you've got quite a few people who go down there and they will drum. They do drumming ceremonies.
Yes.
And for me, that always ramps up energy. If human beings are putting effort into something and we're all doing it at the same time, that's to build an energy. Yeah. So lots of other people will report, Chris, the sound of drumming. So as if that he's drumming back at them. Do you get what I mean? So I've had witnesses said to me, Debbie, we thought it was some perv crawling up to the bushes.
Yeah.
And we're there and we're drumming and we can hear it, you know, coming in. And whatever it was clearly interested in what they were doing. But it didn't reveal itself in any way. It didn't frighten them. You got a little bit of the willies, but nothing awful. You know, and she's one of the witnesses who's had an experience in a similar area. Or it's probably one I'm going to read out in a moment. Yeah, 1 second. It might actually be the next one on our list.
There's a lot of witchcraft goes on. I know that in Epping Forest.
That sort of place draws.
Yeah, I mean, there's I know the person, but in Waltham Abbey, which is on the edge there, there's White Witch, which is a shop opposite where Miles's place is, and it's one of very few witchcraft shops for white witches, which is, I don't know too much about it, but you know, and they sell all kinds of this.
You see, to me, that's a label, because witches are witches. It's just whether you practice the dark arts or the light arts. It's a witch is a witch. So yes,
I'm a witch.
I'm a witch.
Yes, and well, it's actually on the internet. I'm giving her a free plug. Debbie actually runs the place, and no, as you walk past it, apparently she's had people throwing holy water in there, the lot. And you know, these
fear and panic is all that is. Yeah. I guarantee, I'm not a betting woman, but I put my next month's wages on that back in whatever century I would have been burnt at the stake. Yeah. Because I see things, I hear things, I experience things. I'm always out in the woods. I make potions and lotions and ointments. Probably would have lived on my own for the rest of my life if I hadn't met my husband. Wouldn't have bothered me one bit. And I've got thousands of female friends that are the same, that are tapped in, like Deb, to nature, you know. Yeah. It's fear. That is fear. For me to say that I'm a head witch just means that I believe in my own magic and I can put my intent into something. And I can use that to do good for people. And if I do bad, then it'll come back at me. So I don't do bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't mind gifting people, you know. There's nothing wrong with gifting people. You see, you can gift them and say something like, you can give them a gift of inner sight, which would mean that they would see themselves as another person sees them, probably for the first time ever. So these ways of, you know, it's just about positivity and keeping things around you positive. If you tap into the earth and you're into your herbs, like Miles, some of the best druids in the centuries were males. Yeah, highest witches ever were males. You need male and female energy. You need that for any magic to work, you know. And I think it's fair, Chris. I think over the centuries we fear people's strength. Not us, we've got fear, but you know what I mean. Like the elite fear it. Like if we're strong, it's, no, back them down. Yeah. Don't just be having them being strong. Let's chuck a plague in there or something. Or tell them there's a hurricane coming. I mean, we're still doing it now, aren't we? In 2023.
Yeah.
Hence
I had a dear friend who was a white witch, and she's no longer with us now. Hello, Tawny. You know, she's up there looking down. And
your name.
Tawny, yeah, that was a nickname. But she was a white witch, and she was saying that they were healing. That they were the women who we used to heal, and the establishment didn't want healers around unless it was for themselves, because they knew something they didn't know.
Yeah.
So and also I've noticed the media.
I can treat you for free in the same way that Miles can. I can take you into the woods and say that's what you need for your chest, or that's what you need for your stomach problems. There's nothing magical about it. I learned it from my grandfather. So it's just like this passed down knowledge or law. So I can understand that if you, back in the day, if you cured someone of, say, an awful itch or something like that, you might be seen as, that's absolutely impossible. How have they done that? Hang them, burn them at the stake kind of thing. So we were just, even now, as I say, people were frowned upon, because if you say, like Deb said, I'm a white witch, you're into the occult. The occult just means something you don't understand.
Oh, you worship Satan. Yeah, of course.
Well, I think the media has got a lot to answer for, because what gets me with the media, I mean, there was I won't mention their names, but there was a couple that used to go around doing shows with black magic and things like that. And the media always shows the pervy side,
Yes.
because it's a bit like
Sensational.
it's sensational. Also, it gets people interested because it puts sex into something. It's interesting. But as Torna said, that's a very, that's a sort of a fringy sort of thing. But of course, it's all, if you're going to make a show and there's 99% of people that are perfectly okay and there's 1% are a bit odd, you're going to go focus on the 1% that are a bit odd because you want to make a program.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think that's all it is. Changing though.
It is changing, because I went on one of these walks and talks on foraging.
Yeah.
And I feel another show coming on there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you?
Yes.
Yeah, on foraging and things like that. Although it's a bit difficult to do it in a room, isn't it? Mind you, I had those 3 cultures, didn't I, in glasses. You could have looked at that. Oh yeah, that's a bit of penicillin there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, actually, it's a very fascinating subject, because it is tapping into energy. And I have been into a witch shop. It's a very interesting shop. There's a few things that are a little bit iffy in there, but when I say iffy, pictures of Baphomet and things like that, and that, which is a bit. But I think that it is very, very interesting. And Miles is into. I can't speak for Miles, but he's interested in these different earth energies and things like that. But back to what you were saying about these ley lines. Now, Sandy is an extremely haunted place. And remember, I won't mention it again, about the little girl that saw the lady with the big eyes that sat in the corner of the room. Have you heard that one?
Oh, I've heard lots like that, Chris. It does not surprise me at all.
Well, my brother-in-law told me this. It was an engineer where he worked, and he lived up there. And they had a little girl that started singing strange Victorian songs.
Oh.
And she was a young girl that was in a cot, so she couldn't have got out of the cot. And her toys, when they got up in the morning, they found her toys had been rearranged around the room, and the things had been moved. And the little girl used to sing and all that. And they asked her, said, well, she could just about speak. They said, well, where do you find these songs from? She said, it's the lady with the big eyes that sits in the corner. And they got one of these, I don't know what you would call them, exorcist, but a woman who's an expert on this. And she said, well, it's a lady that loves children, and it's the spirit of this lady, and she is not harming your daughter at all. We won't do anything.
Right.
She said she's under she's no danger at all. She's a loving spirit. Nothing to do. We'll just leave it alone and just let the lady be here. And this little girl
with big eyes.
Lady with the big eyes that sits in the corner. And she used to sing these Victorian songs that nobody ever heard of.
I used to speak to Garrett, I promise you, I used to speak. My dad used to come in room when we were kids, because I've always had night terrors. And he'd said I'd sit up in the bed and just talk fluent German, which is ridiculous. And then obviously it took me till I was 55 to find out that my DNA is. I just think that's extraordinary. So is it like a memory or something in my DNA? I don't know. Is that even possible?
Well, I've always had my background is German, and I've always had this strong sort of link to Germany. I don't know why. My father did as well. It's on my father's side.
He remembers it. Yeah, that's it. It's like your soul remembers it somehow.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, when you look around, I need
to get a drink of water. My chest is gone, so I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water.
No worries.
Okay. But this is fascinating. I mean, I learned something tonight I did not know about this ley and Lee and things like that. I really didn't know that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
But, by the way, we've got a celebrity cat here. Is that the? It's not Roger Ring the cat, is it? Oh, it's Bob. Hello, Bob.
I don't know why he's decided he wants to clamber over me.
Well, he's the Deputy Prime Minister of Fockham, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yes.
Because yes, Roger surname Ring the cat. Roger Ring the cat is actually the Prime Minister of Fockham. Yes,
that's the deputy at the moment.
Yes, I think we've got a picture of Roger Ring, the cat,
I think we have.
because here he is, Roger Ring, the cat. Here we are.
There he
Here
is.
he
Look. Just looking very.
yes.
It's looking very serious.
Well, he's just passed a few motions. You see, that's the thing for the Parliament.
Yes. Yeah. In his litter tray.
That's right. Yes, outlawing rats is one of them.
Yes.
But when you, it's quite interesting. I mean, it's actually put the because when you, as I say, when you're riding along the Lee Valley, you go a long time without seeing a soul.
Yeah.
And when it gets dark, it's pitch black because there's, you're really in the woods, and it really is quite something. But Epping Forest, it is a very creepy place. I mean, my cousin got buried in a little chapel in Epping Forest, and if you took a picture of it, this is New England, America, you would believe it. The little chapel looks like something from New England. It's sort of
Salem,
and the colours there are a bit weird. It's a nice place, Epping Forest, but it goes for a long, long way. And of course, you've got North Weald, a very creepy place, because there's lots of underground tunnels underneath there, and the tube goes out a long way, and they reckon that there's an underground tunnel that links the London Tube with North Weald, which is a lot.
There's World War II tunnels down there.
Yeah.
World War II. Where we have areas where land has ancient burials like Amesbury Banks and Lawton Camp, places like that, where they've been disturbed below ground. We get areas where dog-headed men are seen, or these strange creatures are seen. And it's normally when a military go in, dig tunnels. So somewhere like Dorking Deep Dean, where you've got that military train station, those tunnels underneath, there are a large number of these being watched reports down there in the tunnels. And if you know military defence land, you're probably putting areas together in your head now. So we've got these ancient sites, and then we go in and we tunnel them, and then you've got the natural tunnel systems as well. Well, if there's energy moving around all of those places, and something dark is sat there, drinking it in and kind of thing, and it's like driving on the road when you're a serial killer. It's ideal pickings. You just wait for some wandering soul to come along with their dog or on the bike or whatever, and I'm going to scare him and get me feed for today, kind of thing. Yeah. Which, when you think about it, it's absolutely awful, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but
true. Well, look in Kent, you've got Chislehurst, haven't you? Chislehurst Caves, and they've been used for years. They were used as air raid shelters during World War II, because that was in what was called Bomb Alley, and that's where the V1 bombs used to come across, and they'd be dropping all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's also where the bombers used to come up from France, across Dover, through Kent and that. But I mean, Pluckley in Kent, that is supposed to be the most haunted place in Kent. There's one in Essex.
Screaming Woods of Pluckley, it's called. The Screaming Woods of Pluckley, it is known as, Chris.
Yes, I thought that's rang a bell.
That's where the Darling Buds of May was filmed, apparently.
Yeah.
And Dorking Deep Dean is at the bottom of Box Hill, and it's alleged.
Box Hill is an area with lots and lots and lots of really strange accounts. Really strange ape-like creatures. A young single girl back in the war, days of the war. As I said, we were chatting earlier, weren't we, about the strawberry fields where people would go out. Yeah. Well, one of the things that school kids did that had been moved out, had been evacuated, that they would forage in the fields for medicine and foodstuffs, because, we were running out of both. It's what they did it as part of school. That's what they did.
Yeah.
So they've got a number of school children out with a teacher foraging within the woods, and what the girl described as a large hairy ape man walked out of the woodland and looked at them all. Teacher saw them, kids saw them, everything. Just, it was just passed down from grandmother to granddaughter. Yeah. Oh, when I was a kid, this really strange thing happened. And you look at the area of Box Hill, there's a number of reports like that, which are really, really, similar things. Is it the energy in the area? You're missing people. That young lass disappeared off Box Hill. 16-year-old girl got into a taxi. He dropped her off, not at the pub at Box Hill, near the pub, in the middle of the rain, absolutely peeing down with rain, and she just walked off to the hill. Never seen again. Never seen her clothing. They said, oh, she's probably committed suicide. If that was the case, they would have found a clothing. If not,
Yes.
you know, they'd have found a shoe or a backpack or something like completely gone. It's in the newspapers. You can read about it. And there's all these, you know, wonderful speculation of what actually happened to her. But I am on the other end of that. I'm seeing the witnesses making these reports. So people saying that they're out with the dogs and something's following them within the woods, and they can hear the footsteps. They know it's something. They just can't see it.
Yeah.
This almost predator-like being, Chris, as if it's prismatic is a word that's used over and over again, almost as if it is reflecting its surroundings back at you, so you can see movement, but not what that movement is or what it's being made by. Yeah.
Wow.
Awful.
You're talking about Box Hill in Kent, are you? Because
Yes.
there's a Box Hill in Kent. Yeah.
Box Hill in Kent.
Because that's fascinating. That really is fascinating.
I know.
Because I often get the feeling that I'm being watched. And this is, when you're in woodlands, you do get that feeling a lot. You know, and if there's people around, it doesn't matter. But if you're on your own,
Yeah, it's
you
a bit
feel it even
unnerving.
more.
Yeah.
Well, it is. When I was going along, if 5 minutes went past, I didn't see anybody. 10 minutes went past, didn't see anybody. And I was up in the gear on my old cycle, thinking, I hope I don't get a puncher. You know, going along. I'm going along bleeding way. I ain't seen a soul. Someone in the distance coming towards me, you know. But it's a very that is Boxing in Kent. But round where you are, you know, up in Manchester and also round near Leeds, there's lots of strange things going on around there as well. Would you say there's an increase in sightings? I won't mention the place, shall we say CERN in Switzerland.
Everywhere. No,
Since they've been
everywhere.
opening something up in Switzerland, I won't say, you know, the CERN.
Right, I get you. It's about,
yes, because we're on YouTube.
It's hard for me because one of the contributing factors for me is that I'm more well known now, so people can find me easier and they find it easier to make a report. People are far more happy to come forward now with a report, you know. But yeah, the last 18 months, things have ramped up unbelievably. And I've just started research on, well, I've just gone public, almost public with research. I am looking at, in 2017, one of the biggest gas closures happened out in the North Sea. 70% of the British public, where we hold our gas revenue, was just gone. Government got rid of it. And I believe that there is a correlation between that and the fact that from then on, we were locked down in our homes because there wasn't enough gas for industry. And I think it was get them all home, like stay at home, and it's still going on to this day. Why would British Gas say that holding tank there out in the middle of the North Sea that holds 70% of British gas, let's get rid of it. Yeah. Let's not have it anymore.
Pointless.
And as I mentioned that on one or two podcasts, next thing my channel's gone down. Yeah. For talking about unscrupulous subjects.
Yes. Yeah. And also, we've got 400 years worth of coal underneath Great Britain. So, you know, we're on YouTube, so.
No, it's the only time in history, Chris, where the governments give money to the people. Since the Doomsday Book, the government have took money from us.
Yeah.
And since, and we all got sick, we'll give you money. You can have £1,000 a year now. Just stay at home.
Yeah.
You know, here's extra money for your heating because you're going to be at home more. So this is why we're making this £900 payment to people. Keep them at home. Why are you keeping us at home? Because you sold us all our gas and we haven't got anything. Yeah. So you knew it would come in. You knew infrastructure was going to implode. People are thinking, why is she saying that? Won't have that much. Of course, it's had that much of effect on us. If you someone turns around to you today and says, right, I'm taking 70% of all your stuff, your gas, your electric, your food, everything, you'd be like, no, that's the majority of my stuff. So why would we go? Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We could discuss this on the Naughty Channel, Deb. You know, because I've got BitChute and we do Naughty Channel where we say.
Yeah, I do the same. I've got a BitChute. I just say I do all of them because YouTube won't let you talk about things that are current and topical that people want to discuss.
Yeah, exactly.
I would like to discuss it on here, Deb, but YouTube.
No, I get it. It's so hard, isn't it? Because you don't want to put misinformation out there.
You want to do a show on this on BitChute? Because I'll be happy to do it.
Not a problem. For someone like me, it's taken.
You got it.
I don't know, probably 5 years to build my channel. So people must be. People say it's brilliant, Deb. People are hearing you now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I've touched on it.
I think you probably.
Sorry, YouTube took me down for just doing a show on HSP, highly sensitive people. They took me down on that. I was absolutely shocked. I don't know what the hell they found in it. This is why I've got to be really careful what I say because I don't want to be written down.
You have. I mean,
but if you want to do a show on that on BitChute, Deb, I'll be really happy.
Not a problem. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
I do one with Shannon on her book, which we can't mention on here because of the censorship, you know. But I would love to do that channel. All right, Deb.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fuzzy Bee, Deb. That'd be good. Back to.
I need to know about Epping Forest animal attacks and howls in 2014.
Give me 1 second.
That's only like 9 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
The witness's name is Gary Brewer.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Gary because he's a wild camper.
Right.
Yeah. He's had an interest in the subject. So obviously when his neighbours are talking about things that are happening, he's eared in. He's like, hang on a minute, what was that you said? So I wrote to BBR as I live very close to Epping Forest and I know of horse attacks and lots of missing animals in the area. The neighbours have chatted about it and you hear every now and again from people who keep their horses or use the forest for their horses themselves. The horses I'm talking about are still on a farm next to the forest. There's a stable where they are, and the stable contacted the police because over a course of 3 or 4 months, the horses a number of times had been slashed. Now, the area they're kept in is not the easiest to get into. So once again, a really tricky area for a human to get into.
Yeah.
It's on one of the industrial estates. There's CCTV everywhere. And it's gated. So how would people get into that stable yard unseen unless they were coming from the forest? He said, I'm really suspicious and I'm a security-minded person. And you could say, due to the animal tax, I'm not leaving anything to chance.
Yeah.
So one night, I heard a howl that I can't explain. The night it happened, I was on the sofa just thinking and watching the moon through the patio doors. When I thought I heard a howl, they sounded out of place. I couldn't recognise the noise other than to say it was a howl. Now, to anyone else, they wouldn't think anything of it. But I took note of this due to the horses being messed up there.
Yeah.
He said, it may have been a deer calling or a fox or something like that, but I know it wasn't. It stood out as unusual. He said there was not any wind. It was not a night that the local club was open or anything like that. And I think he would have been a bit insulted, if I'd have said something like that to him. And he said the horses, for all it looked like they'd been slashed, it was on both sides of the flanks. Now, anyone who's out there who knows horses can hurt you if they want to.
Yeah, they can.
And they make a right old racket if you try and get in. So anyone who's brave enough to go, and I know it happens, that some people do attack horses, but these were different. These claw marks were different. It actually went into the newspaper, this story. Yeah. But you try finding it in the newspaper, and I pay a fee for the newspaper, and I can't find it.
No.
So these local residents who remember this story, they remember reporters asking questions about this story, but it's not there. It's no longer there. It's not in the papers anymore. Mm. And as Chris said before, Epping Forest is huge. It's absolutely huge. You get lots and lots of people coming to it for exercise and leisure. The last thing they want is people being frightened to go into Epping Forest.
Yes.
You know, because you lose all that. People probably think, well, you know, where's the money
in there?
Yeah, I'm not going. No, I shall ride my bike somewhere else. I shall go somewhere else to do it. I think people are fine with ghost stories, and I think we're even fine with like lights and alien stuff within the woods. We'd take a chance. But honestly, when it comes to something that you believe is 8 feet tall with red eyes that's following you through a woodland,
Yeah.
I can understand why people would be like, yeah, probably not going to book in a campsite there at any time soon.
Yeah. Something a bit more physical, isn't it? That a more physical description.
There's something going on down there in that area because it starts. You can follow the Thames. You've got similar reports all along it. 16 reports along the Medway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, the same on the River Leg, same on the River Leg. Look at the rivers rather than the areas.
Yeah.
And there's not an area in the UK. If you want to email me now, my name's debbiehatswell@gmail.com. All lowercase. Email me, tell you my town, and I will send you the nearest report to you, and you'll be shocked.
And there's a link down below here to your website.
There's that many of them.
Yeah, there's a link to your website down below in the comments. In the description sense.
But I had a viewer last week, Chris, get in touch with me, and she said she was really new to the subject. She didn't know anything about it, and she said to me, "I'm just reaching out, Debbie, to say that I've come across your stuff and I really enjoy it. Have you got any reports in the Dundee area? Because this is where I'm from." She gave me the name of the town, and I went in and I said to her, "There's that many of them that the document is 11 pages long, so it's probably better if I send them to you by email rather than messenger." 11 pages long, Chris, of a Word document. There was that many. And the first reports, and Deb will attest to this, were found in an ancient book, 650, the Caledonians. It was written by the Gaul.
Yes.
And the Caledonians, the Scottish, the Gauls were frightened away from the area by satyrs or man monkeys that would steal fish from the nets and capture the women and take them for themselves. And the only thing they were frightened of was fire. So the villagers would set fire to the fields to keep these satyrs or men monkeys away. And the document's out there. So in that area, that's been going on since 650.
Yeah.
And up to the latest report in 2018. So all through history, people who have walked on this isle of ours have been reporting the same things. They're not always giving it the same name because history changes. Even paintings, that's the interpretation of the artist. So you see a woodwoos and it looked like this fancy, fancy schmancy with like a Tudor wig on and all of it. When you describe it, it looks like a monkey. I think that's artist thing. But if you look at it, Chris, the earliest account that I can find in the UK of someone discussing a face that watches you from the leaves is 429. So 5th century. There's an old text out there called The Sisters of Albion, and read that. It says that 3 sisters came from Greece and they married the giants of Albion.
Yes.
It's just the history is absolutely fascinating when you take the time to go back up and over it. It's not something that suddenly pops up because of a TV series. No. We get accused of that a lot. People say, "Oh, finding Bigfoot." No, I'm sorry. We have the longest history, spoken and written history of wild men compared to Canada and America, hands down. Yeah. Hands down, because I've studied them myself. They can go back to the Native American time. Can't go back to the 4th century.
No.
Wow. What about the Green Man? Where does this come into it?
It's face that looks at you through the trees, that we celebrate, that we revere and slightly fear a little bit. I wonder. 1972, 2 young girls, not far from where Deb is, in an old sewage works in Bartry. It's been left to rack and ruin. Council own it, typical. They both playing, they're skipping school as I did, 15 years old. And she said, we both saw a movement, and as we looked, there was a man lying in the grass. Not a human man, a human male or anything like that, but a man that was watching us, and he was using the grass and like the teasels and the nettles to watch us.
So
her friend was absolutely terrified and set off running. She said, and I realised, she said, I wasn't frightened. I was really like curious, like, what's that? What's it? She said, but he shook his head at me as if to say, no, don't come any closer. She said, and I suddenly realised that I was on my own. So I ran off and just followed my friend. She said, but I'm so annoyed at myself. I wish I'd have stood my ground. Yeah. So I said to her, explain to me what you mean. She's like the Green Man. He was looking, and that's exactly what I saw. I saw a movement in bushes like this. And as I looked at that movement, it went like that and looked at me. Yeah. And so that's it. I've always had that correlation with the Green Man, just because that's kind of what he looked like. I think it's fanciful and lovely now because we see it as a tradition, dancing around the maypole and the whole nine. But when you look at the reports that Pliny wrote about the silvestries of England, he said they could be men or trees, depending on what they chose. So even Pliny was right. I don't know if it was Pliny the Elder or Pliny the Younger. I can't tell him apart. I think we'll go with him. But one of Pliny's wrote about they were grey, hairy men that lived in the woodlands of the UK.
Yeah.
And he said that they sent, the first time the Romans come to invade us, it was them that sent the Romans back.
Yeah.
Because the country was covered in woodlands. It was fully wooded.
No, it was completely covered, wasn't it? That's what I mean, yeah.
Lindisfarne, that's a country. It's not a country. It's an island that's always fascinating. That name, that group, Lindisfarne. It's a beautiful name. It's Lindisfarne. I'd like to have a house called Lindisfarne. It's a sort of beautiful. That's supposed to be very haunted.
I've been. It's absolutely beautiful there.
Yeah. Because apparently you can only get onto the island when the tide's up. And you can be trapped on there. I mean, because it's places like that around Essex, where the postman has to wait until the tide's low and quickly post the letters and come back again. You can drive across. You're stuck on there, If you
that's exactly what Lindisfarne's like. Yeah. Once the tide comes in, it's just the little island with the church on is cut off.
Yeah, it's like Cornwall. There's one in Cornwall that I've been to. So
Michael's Mount. I think Michael's Mount.
That's it.
When you think of the country that we live in, underneath all the noise and all of the stuff, we have a fantastic history. When you look back at spoken history, we have some amazing, beautiful, sagas, whatever name you want to put on them, that they're passed down from, word of mouth. So, like, even learning about the Picts for me was amazing. That the Pictish people could take over an entire village just by poisoning the water. Yeah. But they wouldn't kill them. They would hypnotise them almost in a zombie-like way and then use them as slaves until they dropped dead. But it was okay because it was on our island and we decided it were fine. But stuff like that as a kid absolutely fascinated me. Yeah. Like, how did they know what to use to put into the water? It must have been handed down by mouth because nobody wrote that then, did they? So I think about all of our ancestors. When anybody says to me, like, I don't feel like a very strong person, or I don't really know why I'm here, and I say, do you know how many people fell in love just so you can be here right now at this moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Thousands of them going back how many times around the sun just so that you can be here right at this minute right now.
Yeah. It's amazing when you think about it. I mean, there's a chap on the internet. Now, I don't care too much for what he says, but he did one show. He's not a professor, but he calls himself Professor Simon. And he's on YouTube. And he did one about Eyes Wide Shut because he's an ex-BBC editor, film editor. I did a show about it about a year ago, wasn't it, Deb? About a year, 9 months, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And he said that we have this hidden ancient past that the aristocracy tap into. And the film, now, I can't remember it verbatim, but it was on the lines that his friend, who was a film editor on the film Eyes Wide Shut, worked for, I think it was so many years, I won't say how many, on this film. And he said that Stanley Kubrick, he tapped a raw nerve. He died strangely, he died very young. And he was the editor, the director of the film. And if you see the film on Professor Simon's channel, he said that the finished film, there isn't anything of Kubrick's work on there.
No.
It's all been scrapped.
Apparently about 20 plus minutes was taken out of the film, and that was his 20 plus minutes.
Yeah.
Because he felt it needed to be there and they felt it didn't.
Well, it's like that he was going on about a film called Quatermass. Now, Quatermass hit, that was done in the late 50s, early 60s. It hit a raw nerve about this ancient place because apparently in Spain, when they say something is spooky, mysterious, they call it Cornwall. Apparently, I've been told. Right. It's secondhand information, so I could be wrong with this. I haven't checked it out. So if they say long ago there was a place, it's always Cornwall because Cornwall is the most haunted. It's the most mysterious place. And I'm in love with. I've always loved Cornwall. I've always wanted to live down in Devon and the West Country. I've always been attracted to it. But the strange thing is that, you know, things like these mysterious mounds like Stonehenge. Why was it quartz? Why did they drag those stones all that way from Wales?
Yeah.
What look about Woodhenge up in Norfolk? That was trees that had been put upside down to make this strange circle. Weird things.
The planning and the logistics to actually even start on a project like this. So you've got to take all of your peasants. Who's feeding them?
Yeah.
Where is all of that coming from? You know, we've not put all of that effort in for nothing. There's just no way. It's not something that's happened overnight, is it? So for me, it was incredibly important, far more important. If we're giving up our time and working, almost like the Egyptians working on these structures, why are we doing that? Why, as humans, are we putting that effort into that? And if you look at it now, there's a lot of people in the chat who'll understand exactly what I mean. You can go to an area yourself and it just does not feel right. And you feel like you need to apologise for being there. Like you want to say, "Woo, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That you've been so disrespected. I'm really sorry. And from now on, I will tidy you up and I will do what I can." And the energy will change in that area almost overnight. And I think that's what some of these places were, Chris. I think there was a number of things going on. I think that was where we met our future brides. It was where we met our families and our cousins and the people that had left our tribes. We'd all come together in these places and we would barter and we would drink mead, you know, we would catch up, almost like raving now or whatever, you know, you want to call it. I think it had that gathering space to it. But I think that became after. There's got to be a reason why that area in particular. Like you say, why take all of that stone from Wales when you could use stone from the area? There's something about that stone that they needed. Is it its renaissance? Is it its makeup? And as I said before, there's been testing done at Stonehenge. And as you start to drum, it's almost like infrasound.
Yeah.
So it would make you joyous and exuberant. And I think that was the more energy you put into something. Yeah. How did they know to get that tiny little, the alignment of the sun?
With the sun,
I've been to the one in, the one in Ireland.
Yes.
Then you go down into it.
Yes. Or the Barrow. Yes.
Oh, it's the oldest building in the world, isn't it, Deb? Even older than the pyramids, the one at Ireland.
I think it is, yeah.
Well, I believe the Egyptians got to Ireland, don't they? There is strong evidence that the Egyptians.
I would say that this was Celtic built, because it's typical stone ring and mount. So everything I'm seeing is British, and it goes down and down and down. I think it's called Low Grange or something like this. Grange something in Ireland. And
I know the one you mean. Yes.
Yeah, the New Grange. The writing goes back. Even the graffiti on the walls goes back centuries. And that right part where the bones are, because the bones are still there in the little burial pit, there's one day in summer when the whole thing lights up from a square opening about this big. The whole of the inside of the Grange lights up for just that moment when that sun comes in. Who is that man? Why have we honoured him in this way?
Yeah.
You know, how did we know that for centuries, if we put this little aperture here, that on a certain day of the year, the light would fill that sanctuary? He's got to have been some god or some kind of, we worship him almost as a god. And unfortunately, we don't know because we don't have the written history to know, do we? But places like that as a kid, I could walk into them and I could feel it and I could see it and I could see everything that had happened and all of the things walking around me. And I remember looking at the adults and thinking, why do they look so bored? Like,
there's all this going on.
In my mind, I can see like the gathering place and bringing people coming with big baskets of food and, things that they'd grown themselves and wares that they'd made to kind of barter. Human beings need human beings. Yeah, and back in the day where you couldn't go on your phone, can you imagine waiting 300 days and knowing that you're going to walk for 5 weeks? But at the end of that walk, that's a year of preparation.
I know.
you know,
Look, in France, apparently the English went down and they found evidence that all the tribes got together in this place in France where they found all these cave paintings and that for a big shindig every so often, and they traded. This idea that our ancient past are always at war and killing each other is not really correct.
No.
Because they traded with each other, and I think it was full of love and peace and goodwill, and I really do. I think we've been told a load of the shit of the bull, as they usually say. You know,
I would agree, because fear sells better than niceness. But I think you're right. I think that it was humans meeting other humans, exchanging energy.
Well, it's not so aggressive. How are we here? And how do you feel about Graham Hancock's view that there was an advanced civilization 10,400 years ago that got wiped out by a disaster, but there's a few survivors, and they were around, and they were the ones that went to tribes and educated them.
Yeah.
And it was this advanced civilization that built the pyramids, because there's no evidence that the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids. They built burial chambers.
Completely correct.
Didn't, there's no hieroglyphics on the wall of the pyramids, which is weird.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Me and Deb are the same about Antarctica, aren't we, Debbie? Why can't you go there? Why can't you fly over Antarctica? Why can't you see it on Google Earth? There's supposedly nothing there. There's no resources out there. We spend over £2 billion a year on security for an area where there are no resources. Why?
Yes.
From 1959, because this goes back to the flat Earth thing. I'm not going to get into that argument tonight, but
if you go back, Chris, if you go all the way back to Atlanta, people believe that area was Atlanta, and it wasn't a frozen place. It was a tropical place at the time. Yeah. And now it's a frozen place, and I'm going to be, people are probably think I'm absolutely crackers. Do you remember that film years ago where they're stranded out there in the Arctic and they dig up the ice and there's this thing in it, and this thing, the thing, as it was called. I honestly believe that there is something in Antarctica that has to be at that temperature to be alive. So a race of humans, alien, I don't know, I couldn't tell you that, but a race that is not hot-blooded as we are, that shuns the sun. So is that why we're not allowed to go? I never get his name right. Deb knows him better than me. The guy who said he saw
Bird.
The amount of times that he said he saw aliens out there, Chris. And it's just,
what about Admiral Byrd? Admiral
Byrd. But even more recently, there's a disc, isn't there? A complete circular disc out there that people have discovered. It's on YouTube, you can find it. And it looks like a alien ship. It's just a glint off the weather balloon. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Well, we're not allowed to fly over that area anymore. So they've increased the area that you can no longer fly under. So anything like that gets my skin itching. If I'm not allowed somewhere or not allowed to do something, I want to know why I'm not allowed.
Yeah, I want to know why.
Why?
It's like that hill. That's right. It's like that hill near Stonehenge. Now, when I went there, they'd fenced it all off, and you couldn't go up it. And people just broke down the fence and went up it. And I went up it. And they don't know. Is it Silbury Hill? That one that? And they really do not know what it was doing there and why it was built. And I think they were more advanced in a way that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like you look at a dog. Hello, hey, we got it in the dog again. Hey, it's a bit late this week, isn't it? It's normally, hang on, we got the diddly dongs as well.
They're agreeing with us, aren't they? Probably agree. More of it is what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a little bastard found, so that's it. Right, I'll take it out now. No, but actually, what you find is that these things, like for example, we did a show, was it a week or two back, on A Little Diggy Down Below, and that was about Admiral Byrd, and there's a Freemason connection with that because he was a Freemason.
Yeah.
And they financed a lot of his. This is what Michelle was talking about.
Yes.
I think it was week before last. It was about that. But these things with, I don't go too heavily onto UFOs because I think it's been hyped up a lot by governments with an agenda. and it has been hyped up, I know. Yes, I do believe there are unidentified flying objects. I'm two minds whether they come from another planet or not. I don't know. But I do know
the answer, yes.
when NASA is in on it and the American government are in on it, it's a psyops. And when it's a psyops is a pack of lies to give people an impression of something. So I think that, yes, there are UFOs. I'm not debunking it. But yes, it's being used for political purposes, because the amount of ding-dongs that say that they back-engineered flying saucers and things like this. It's like, oh, yes, I have that, to make America look like a fantastic, the most advanced race in the world. Well, if you were from the planet Zob and you were a very advanced race, would you land in America? I don't think so. Would you want to say, I want to meet Joe Biden, your leader?
Not.
Yeah.
Definitely not, no.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't want to meet any leaders. I think the cartoon, well, actually, there's a film years ago, and it's a comedy about, was it Morons from Outer Space? I think that is the closest to what we'd have with the Close Encounters, because we think they're advanced race. They might be as thick as shit, you never know. And it was a brilliant film with these morons from outer space. I think it's on YouTube, you can see it. I was off my seat with laughter when I saw it. Was it from the planet Plop?
I think if you landed, some Englishman had beat them to death with a hay fork or something, wasn't it, in the middle of the woods, and that'd be it. You'd get better. It's all over and done with. Yeah.
Jimmy Nails in it, that's it. This thing lands.
Jimmy Nail, he's got to be a few year old then, Chris. Yeah. Is he still with us? Is he still with us, Deb?
Who?
Yeah.
Jimmy Nail, he was saw him. He was a good looking lad.
Who?
Jimmy Nail.
Oh, Jimmy Nail. Yeah.
He's still with us?
Still with us, yeah.
Mel Smith, that's it. He was in it. As a fantastic scene where there's this girl who's the alien. She's doing her lips like this, lipstick, and the car goes over a bump, and she sort of does this, and then afterwards, people see it. This sort of, and everybody is a fashion for women to put this Z up their cheek, and everybody's following, talking. Hello, how are you? It's just, and it looked at human. To me, there's a serious side to that film. It really was a serious side because it showed you how gullible people are. It really does. But it's a classic film. I was crying with laughter. It's my sense of humour to a T. Yeah. I loved it. But only Jimmy Nail could have acted that part. It was perfect placement. But
I never watch out like that, mate, do I? I'm always too busy working.
Yeah, you are.
But look at this thing at Rendlesham Forest, for example. They found out that was a psyops. It didn't happen. And I can't put words into his mouth, but Richard D. Hall, I've met him several times. I'd like to have him on the show because you know what's happened with him. The BBC's done a hatchet job on him. Yeah. He got a bit too close to the truth. I think he's laying a bit quiet at the moment. But I might have Andrew with a shitty blue jumper on the show soon. So we'll just wait and see. Andrew's
going to be on it. I'm telling you now. Put my foot down.
Really?
Not if he's put Prince Andrew. No, thank you very much.
No, not Prince Andrew. No, Andrew with a shitty blue jumper. Andrew Johnson. I think. Is it Johnson? Andrew. Know. He has him on his show occasionally. Check the fact. Check the evidence. That's his website. Check the evidence. Right. Yeah, and he was on Richard D. Hall's show once with a shitty blue top on, and Richard D. Hall took the mick. He had loads of shitty blue tops made, so people could wear these shitty blue jumpers on, pullovers on. Andrew Johnson, that's it. Yeah. So and I hope Richard comes on one day because as I say I've met him several times, and he's very good. I mean, he's very thorough in his research, and But
you to both worlds. So if you for me, as you do it's your job and stuff like that, you don't get a lot of time to watch what other people are doing. So sometimes people will send me documentaries, and I think, honestly, I just haven't got the time to sit down and read them, and I think I miss out on a lot. Yeah, like a lot of info and stuff like that because you can't. You got so much coming in all the time. That's it. Sometimes I feel a bit jealous, so I'm trying to, be a bit more concentrating on other things, kind of. But since I spoke to you guys last, I've had 23 reports.
Yeah.
23 people have reached out to me and said, Deb, will you please interview me? Because I've just not, it's time. I'm ready. I'm just, I can't do it anymore. It's time. So it's just like, I fit them all in.
More people coming forward, and other people see that they're coming forward, and they're like, well, they've managed to.
Yeah, I hear that so much now. Yeah, it's time. I mean, look at Kane. Kane had an accident, Chris, in the middle of Buxton. He dreamt about it on the Thursday. It took place on the Sunday. They went through a wall, landed in the river, cars filling up with water. So they get his wife out, and a man stands with her through the entire accident. Kane's trapped in the car. They've got to get the medical helicopter in. They've got to cut him out. And all this time he's thinking, I dreamt about this. He's got a wound in the same place where he dreamt about it. And at the end of the day, there was no man stood with Jackie on the bank at any point. So they literally went round the police, they went round the fire brigade, they went round spoke to people and said, do you know who that man was? And every one of them said, there was no man there. Yeah. 15 minutes before the crash, it was phoned in on a 999 call. So 1:45, somebody from Buxton phoned in and said, a car's just gone through the wall, it's gone into the river. 15 minutes later, it didn't happen, so they were already on the way.
Yeah.
And this man is 72 and said, it is time, Debbie. Yeah. It's time for me to share my story. Well, and honestly, I think you should get him on as a guest. But the thing is, there are hundreds of them that are coming forward now and saying, no, it's time. I want it wrote down. I want it written down, or it's just going to go into, oblivion. Nobody's going to know my story. And I'm like, now's the time to do it then. Let's get it done.
Yeah, definitely.
I think over the next 18 months, we're going to see a huge change. A massive change in the UK.
Yeah.
Where people are going to say, I am not the minority. I'm sorry, but they're not. They're not the minority. There's bloody hundreds of them.
Yeah.
With these explosions of sightings and things like that, I mean, we've spoken about Cannock Chase, which is another creepy place.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I would think Cannock Chase might, I don't know, does it outdo the Lee Valley and Epping Forest? I would have thought so. I don't know. But it seems to be more so in this country than, as you were saying, in any other country. It's weird.
I think we have a lot of the weirdest sightings.
Yeah, I think we know Cannock Chase, so lots of people head that way to have reports. What we don't understand is the amount of reports that happen in natural areas like Greenbelt land and stuff like that. There are hundreds and hundreds of reports all across the UK.
Yeah.
Cannock Chase, you've got hundreds of investigators working it. Nobody's working in Bedfordshire going, there could be hundreds of reports down there, we're just not hearing them. Yeah. Because that's the whole point of getting volunteer investigators together and saying, get out in your communities and ask. Tell people what you do, what the subjects are that you're interested in. Get a conversation going. Because 9 times out of 10, if the person themselves not had an unexplained event of any kind, then their uncle has, or the friend at work has. Everybody knows somebody that's had an experience that they can't explain. And you think, well, no, they haven't. I'm guaranteeing you, honest your workmates, one of them will have seen a UFO. Or someone will have been for a walk with a dog and seen something really strange. Or, someone will have seen something in the bedroom as a child, or driving down the road and seen something or experienced something. And now's the time, so like I say, to get that conversation going. Let's make it easy for people to say, well, actually, yeah, that happened to me.
Yeah.
Because I say that all the time. All the time, you'd be amazed. The amount of reports that come into me and say, do you know, I completely forgot about that incident until I heard you talking about that person with it, or sharing that report, and it reminded me of something that happened way back then. And I'm looking at it in a different way. Can I share it with you? And I say, yeah, of course you can, because it's your truth.
Yeah.
Let's get it out there. Let's get it recorded. Let's get it wrote down so that when you do pass on, like me, at some point I'm going to pass on. Everything's written down. It's there. It's written law of it. Rather than that, the government saying, well, none of this is true. Let's not make a record of it. I'm the completely opposite. I'm like, we need all the pieces in the puzzle box and the box and the picture and a set of instructions, because we're flying blind here. So let's document every bit of information that comes in.
And then, like you say, from that, somebody else could come forward then and say, oh, that's reminded me of something I saw. And then it's like a snowball effect, isn't it? The more people that come forward, the more people that come forward on the back of that.
And Deb, I get a lot of people who say, I feel really silly explaining this, or I feel really silly, you know, I bet you think I'm a right idiot. But I listen to the thing and I realise, and I say, no, you're not silly. Like, why are you silly? I struggle to come out and explain what happened to me. And I'm quite erudite, and you can't knock me over. I'm like a weeble. I'm just coming straight back up. But even I found it hard. So it affected my mental health. It was that hard. It affected my life.
Yeah.
You know, and you think, that for me is how many other Debbies are out there, you know, how many other Stu's are out there where they're like, I don't understand what happened to me that day. I just don't understand. Is it me? Is it going to happen again?
Yeah.
Well, I can't give them those answers, but I can put them in touch with people who can have a conversation with them and say, I feel exactly the same.
Talk it through.
The same question.
Yeah, but could the energy of that, I mean, it's a show I want to do in the future, and that is how people's energies can take over somebody else's energy, and how your moods and everything changes because of a negative energy or an energy that something or someone is giving off.
That's a whole show on its own. Yeah, that is definitely a whole show on its own.
Yeah, it is.
That is something I want to actually do as a show on this. It's a very complex sort of subject. But I think that there are places like, for example, so saying Sandy in Bedfordshire and Southwold, that place in, is it Norfolk or Suffolk coast? Benjamin Britten was there. There's something. The only thing nice about that place, I think, is a chip shop. But I mean, that's about it, really. They do some bloody good fish and chips there. But apart from that,
sure the residents are wonderful people, Chris.
Sorry,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's something about. I'm sure there's some very nice people from there. But there's something about that area. I don't know what it is. And my granddad, whenever he went up to the East Anglia, it gave him a headache. It's just something about the place. It gave him a headache because it's a sort of like it's flat and it's the light. It's a different type of light there. There's a different type of light.
Your granddad could have been picking up on the energy.
Yeah,
you know? That's the area of the black shuck, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's hundreds of black shuck reports going back in history from that area, Chris. Yeah,
really.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, far more than Dorset in places that we realise. Norfolk, Suffolk coast, that kind of thing. Lots and lots of shuck reports. Ape-like shucks reported. Even up to modern day, lots of modern day reports from down there as well of like black dog-like creatures that follow people home. They kind of associate them with bad news or death, but in some of the old Celtic times, a black dog was seen as a good thing. They would come to walk you home. So I don't know if it's the history or how we look at it now, but people really fear seeing black dogs when they're outside. But there's a few stories where they've been helped people to safety.
Yeah,
you know, they've actually helped weary travellers get back on the right road, kind of thing, and save them. I think it's like anything, isn't it? We fear the unknown. But I get what you're saying. The Clay Lanes, I think there's an area called Clay Lanes where people visiting from all across the country say, I think it's Pembrokeshire, and they're like, no, don't want to drive down that road again. It made me feel sick. It made me feel nauseous, and I can't understand why. You know, and us humans pick up on energy.
It's like that street in Bradford that I told you about. It's been closed off now.
Yeah.
But no, just even passing the end of it, sometimes it's like, oh. But driving down it that one time, I have never been so scared in all my life. And I think it was just the height of the walls and the fact that it was so closed in, and the corner was like a Z, and I thought, I'm going to get the car stuck here. But it was a cut through. It was a road that cut through. And it was just really oppressive and horrible. And then I found out that one of the Rippers victims had been found on the bit of land between that road and the next road.
Yeah.
There's a bit of grass verge, and then there's like gypsy community.
Yeah.
And it was them that had heard us crying and whatever and found her. But it was between the two roads, and this,
yeah, that's probably what we've been picking up on, Deb, just the negative awfulness of that area kind of thing.
Possibly.
Yeah, but don't fool yourselves. Whatever town or city you live in the UK, I guarantee I will be able to find a paranormal UFO or cryptid report within about 10 miles of you.
Yeah, you would.
England
that's right. It's full of it. But when you go look throughout the world, almost every tribe that I can think of, I'm not an anthropologist, but I knew somebody that was, and she's saying that all tribes have a fear of spirits. Everyone. You could go to Papua New Guinea, go to Amazon, you could go to the middle of the African jungle, and these so-called primitive, I wouldn't say they're that primitive, but these tribes, they all have this fear of spirits. Why? Why is it? And you get these scientific bow tie brigade. Oh, well, it's very primitive false. No, they must be picking up on something.
Yeah.
When they're describing the same white figure, this wispy lady in white, or they're all describing this black shadowy figure, and this describing it across the world way before we interacted with each other. You know, you're thinking that most of our nursery rhymes and stories stay out of the woods. You know, there's a wolf in the wood. It came from somewhere, Chris. There's got to be an empathy of truth in it somewhere, hasn't there? We wouldn't have found it important enough to pass it down. And there are entire areas in the world where people can get physically sick. Highgate Cemetery is one, not too far, where people have reported for centuries awful things that have gone on there. I mean, I know everybody's heard of the Highgate vampire, but I've got witnesses that have seen almost what we would describe as a hat man. So in this like black hat, black suit, awful white face. People who've seen black dogs that are really, you know, not a domestic dog, like what we class as a shuck in that area. So there's something going on with the energy. And I think
werewolf as well, wasn't there? Some sort of dogman report.
Yeah, and I think it just the earth, just this energy crisscrosses all of it. And we tap into it sometimes. And other areas, it's just ongoing. And we, as humans, we walk by and we don't realise. And you've got all these people who are having experiences, getting on the train or the car and going home. Some of them will share them and some won't. And I would want to collect every one of them.
Yeah.
If I could.
Yes, every single one.
Yeah, if I could. Yeah.
Yes.
I might have to end it me in a second, guys. My pain's getting me thumb.
Right. Well, and actually, we're coming up to the end of the show as well.
Yes.
Do you know something? This time, it feels like just 10 minutes, doesn't it? It's absolutely.
I can come back on. I'm up and running again.
Do you think we could do a naughty show on the Naughty Channel?
On the Naughty Channel?
Yeah, because BitChute, I call it the Naughty Channel, and people think, naughty show, is it? Yeah, where we talk about naughty things that we can't speak about on here. That's right.
I've got lots of stuff I haven't spoken about this year that I don't mind.
You notice I was going a little bit hot and cold a little bit earlier because I was thinking YouTube, the old sirens are going to. So if you could, please come back, Deb. We really, the three of us, it really gels.
Yes. Any reports that you've got, please send them to Deb. Address is scrolling across the now.
Or if you've got any questions or queries, or you just want to know, where you can find stuff, or if there's anything new, just hit me up on email.
Yes.
And I'll be able to sort it. It may take me a number of weeks to get back to you, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I've got reports from the last Tuesday of last month that I've not even opened an email yet. Unfortunately, this is doing me no favours, but I promise you I will get to it as soon as I can.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you better. Yes, and we didn't have your advert on today, did we?
No.
Can
I put my advert on for my upcoming live
Certainly.
stream?
On you go. Go on. And I'll tell you something. Before you put it on, something weird telepathy happened again. I was watching that show. I don't want to give too much away. And I thought, I wonder if they're going to mention about the disaster. And within about 30 seconds, it came on.
Yeah, that was my hauntings video.
Hauntings video about
London
Underground. I thought, I wonder if Deb's going to cover that. And then the next thing, it was that.
And you did that with the reincarnation one as well, with the little Indian boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Weird, isn't it?
Right, here's my advert.
Oh, I
Brilliant.
cannot wait.
Nor can I. I'm really looking forward to that one.
Oh
And
my
also-
God. I'm serious. I cannot wait for that.
I can't either. I need to make you moderator, Deb.
I will. I'm admin. Use me as you feel free. I am there for you, Deb.
Darling.
I'll be in chat with that one, I can tell you.
And it'll be
And
8
also,
PM.
also this Sunday, a change of time from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And it is well worth watching. Please
Thank
watch
you.
it. And I've been absolutely, do you know something? It's the fastest half hour that
I know.
passes. And it's about
I
40
enjoy
minutes.
it. I really enjoy it. It is one
I really
part of the
enjoy
week where I do my absolute best. And Mark does. It's like, oh, Deb's on at 4. Well,
I always miss it. Who did this one?
I enjoy the chat. I enjoy the people in the chat. I enjoy all of it. Yeah, I'm just Deb here when I'm in there. I'm just Deb.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Next week, coming up, we're hoping to get John Hamer on, Kicking and Screaming.
Yes.
And the week after, I think Michelle, she doesn't know yet, will be back on. And then the week after that, we're hoping to get Survivalist Dave back on.
Oh, I love having him on.
So Survivalist Dave will be back on again. And so, and remember, if you want to see a bad shitty computer with John going, you'll be disappointed because we sorted it out. Hopefully now you're going to do it by phone. So there we are. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. This has been it's a really fantastic show. I'm not sorry, I hope that doesn't sound conceited, but the two guests I've got, I've got Buzzy B Fogman, you've got Deb here, Deb 1 and Deb 2. So
I'm calling my next grandchild Buzzy B Fockham.
Buzzy B Fockham. And we'll be back the same time, same place.
We will.
And remember, whatever happens, have a bloody good laugh.
Yeah.
Everybody, put the thumbs up and subscribe.
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Night, everybody.
Night.